Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja, and in this segment today we are going to discuss about why has the center cut down the allocation of wheat and risen the allocation of rice for certain states. Now this topic is going to be of importance from the concept of general understanding first, GS mains paper third, and preliminary facts are important. So let's begin with the following topics. So these are the topics that we have to discuss step by step. Everything will be covered comprehensively. The slides are data oriented as well as concept oriented, so you can understand everything. You do not need to remember each and every data, but few data are important. I will tell you what are important and what are not, because it's not humanly possible first. Secondly, UPSC will ask you only certain data. I mean, in the mains examination, if you provide that data, you will get certain brownie points. Okay. So the news is that Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh, they have demanded more wheat. They have demanded more wheat in place of rice because the government has reduced the allocation of wheat for these states and risen for the rice allocation, or to restore their original allocation under the NFSA 2013, or change the wheat rice allocation ratio that was revised by the Union Food Ministry in May. So in May, what was there in May, that will also be discussed at the backdrop. Also, these states are BJP ruled states, so they have this genuine request of asking for wheat in place of rice, either do this or do that. Okay, so in May the center has reallocated some quantities by changing ratio of wheat and rice under National Food Security Act. States getting wheat and rice at the ratio of 60:40 now will get it at 40:60. 40 for the wheat and 60 is for the rice. So whatever the difference has been there with respect to changing of the allocation, if one food crop has been reduced, another one has been risen. Now those getting allocation at 75:25 would now get these at 60:40. Okay, and the impact will be such for those states who were not getting any wheat for allocation in allocation. So of course for them it's zero. The impact that is intended by the current government is that it would save about 61 lakh tons of wheat over the remaining 10 months in the current financial year. And then it can be undertaken through the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, and 55 lakh ton of wheat has been provided under this already. So it is said that although the center has reduced the share of wheat through procurement by some other incentive or some other scheme, the government will step in to provide wheat. An equal quantity of rice has been allocated to compensate for the wheat. This is the tide over effect. Okay, so let's know about National Food Security Act. National Food Security Act had one aim: to provide security and universal access with affordability to the poor, and it came into being on July 5, 2013 to address the issue of food security by having public distribution system, those points from where distribution of whole grains and wheat can take place. And it moved from the enactment of this particular act was a movement or a shift from welfare to rights based approach. That means earlier the concept of welfareism was there. We have to do welfare for each and every citizen. But then it became a right that it's very basic to the existence of the citizens. Now it covers 75% of the rural population and 50% of the urban population, the poorest of the poor, and approximately by doing this 2/3 of the population has been covered. For the purpose of providing ration cards, the eldest woman of the household of 18 years or above is mandated to be the head of the household. That means here is the concept of women empowerment. Moving on, if we talk about more, then 81.34 crore persons are actually, they should be covered under it, and 80 crore persons have already been covered under this particular scheme. The approach of this act is life cycle approach. That means life cycle approach means if there is a need to tweak something or add something on, that will move on throughout the life of the act. And special provisions have been made by the rules of 2015 by the name of Food Security Allowance Rule 2015. Now, this gives a lot of benefit to the pregnant and lactating mothers, children in the age group of 6 months to 14 years through various schemes such as ICDS, midday meal scheme, and food security allowance will be provided to those who have not been provided food grains at the whatever the stipulation is for each and every person. If they have not been provided food, so food allowance will be provided by the concerned state government. So there are certain responsibility. The allocation of food grains are done under this act only. From the perspective of center, there is a basically joint responsibility that is shared between the center and the states. For center, it is allocation of required food grains to states and union territories that we are discussing right now. Transportation of food grains up to the designated depots in each state and union territories. Also providing central assistance to state and union territories for delivering of food grains from designated Food Corporation of India godowns to the doorstep of the FPS. So we all know that the government procures food from, of course, the agency by the name of FCI, Food Corporation of India. That will also be discussed. So states and union territories have the responsibility of, first, of course, at the ground level, what is the implementation status or status is looked at by the states and union territories. Effective implementation of the act, which inter alia includes what? Identification. The state will identify who are eligible for it. Issuing ration cards to them. Distribution of food grains entitlements to eligible households through fair price shops, and issuance of licenses to fair price shop dealers and their monitoring. So for setting up effective grievance redressal mechanism is also the responsibility of the state government, and necessary strengthening of the TPDS system should also be there, so that allocation of food grains is definitely going to those, make sure that it's definitely going to those who are actually entitled to it and not being sold out in the market. So first of all, we have to know what is the current strength. This is data oriented. You can write it down, but it's not very necessary. Current data is important. Comparative, no. Current wheat stock, let us know about it. So wheat stock at the central pool, it stood at 311.42 lakh metric tons on June 1st. It is the lowest since 2008, because then the figure was 241.23 LMT. Then 602.91 LMT was there on June 1st, 2021. As you compare it of June 1st, 2021 to June 1st, 2022, you can see it's of course lower, right? And buffer norms, there are buffer norms, that means what? Buffer norms are basically how much has to be put in case of any risk arises, how much has to be safely secured in case of any risk arises. So operational stock of wheat should be, these are the norms, okay? It should be 44.60 LMT as on April 1st, 245.80 lakh metric tons on July 1st, and you see as on June 1st, we can compare 311 to 245, so it is still higher than the buffer norm that we have. 175.20 LMT on October 1st, no need to remember all that, okay? And in addition to all this, a strategic reserve of 30 LMT is required to be maintained on all these 4 dates. Rice stock, although, stood at 496.69 LMT as on June 1st this year. Moving on, if we talk about the procurement practice, how does it occur? So, if you have certain idea about MSP, this would be very easy for you to understand. If not, I will make sure that I give you the basic details of it. So whatever wheat and paddy, it is offered by the farmers, basically are procured or purchased by the government at minimum support price. Minimum support price is the threshold price. If the price of food grains fall down below this, then the government comes into the picture and buys the food grains. So when when the government announces the MSP, it is kept in mind that 2 things are surely addressed. First, if there is a bumper production, what happens? Supply is a lot, demand is not a lot. Demand, how much food you will eat in a month? You regularly eat what you eat, and everybody's family is not going to expand at that point of time, right? So what happens that farmers, they get scared that we have produced so much, demand is not matching to the supply, then what happens? Distress sales starts to occur, and that makes the price to come down, and that makes the farmers to procure losses, incur losses. So MSP saves the farmers from that. Okay, so state government agencies procure that. State government agency is the Food Corporation of India for having a central pool or buffer pool. So Food Corporation of India is basically a statutory body. It came into existence in 1965 under the Act of 1964, Food Corporation Act of 1964, and it comes under the Ministry of Consumer, Food Prices and Distribution. Remember that. Okay, so it does so keeping in mind that government has a pool. However, if producer or farmer, if the production is fine and I am the farmer, I am getting better prices at somewhere else other than the government mandated mandis, I can of course go there and sell my produce over there. And the aim, as I told you, is of this particular practice of procurement, farmers get remunerative prices for their produce first, and also under NFSA, food security has to be ensured. So if the government does not have the proper pool or buffer stock of wheat and rice and specific food grains, then how will it ensure food security? So keeping in mind for that as well. So right now the procurement has come down. Let's know why. Domestically, first of all, we see that because of low production, first that it is happening. Because the third advanced estimates, which is given by the estimates of production of food grains, basically it is given by Ministry of Agriculture, it said that it also estimated that 106.41 million tons of food grain is going to be there for wheat. I am seeing over here. Now, due to a rise in temperature, climate change is also one of the factors that happened in late March. It affected the crops, and then what happens? There was a revision, downward revision for food crops of 106.41 million tons. Now, this is domestic reasons. These are domestic reasons. Globally, supply disruption has been there because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and these two countries are the countries which are highly involved in the supply trade of wheat. And adverse weather has also affected many countries that produce wheat, such as Europe, Canada, United States. So these are the domestic and global reasons. Now, according to the Food Ministry, now again data, not need to remember, just the important ones. 45 lakh tons wheat was contracted. Now, government also has to export wheat, right? Because India at this particular point of time is very important in the map of wheat production. So, 45 lakh tons of wheat was contracted for export in 2022-23 till May 12, and 14.63 lakh ton was imported in April. Now, not only wheat, but wheat flour export, that is atta, was spiked too. And 95,167 tons of atta has already been exported in April. Now, what is the entire situation over here? Let me explain. As I already told you, if any trader, if any farmer or producer gets a better deal apart from the MSP, he or she can easily sell the wheat to that person. So that is what has happened over here. The government has not procured a lot because many farmers, because of the hike in demand, they were getting better prices elsewhere. So they did not sell it to the government, but the traders who are involved in exporting the wheat. So this is what has happened. So crowding out effect, you can see, has taken place from the perspective of private sector over here. Consumption trends, let us see, not very important, but a bit of idea. Gradual decline in per capita cereal consumption has been registered in India. Now, this is because National Sample Survey Office's household consumption of various goods and services in India of 2011-12 report has said that, because this was the last report that they ever published. Among the 10 states where the allocation has been revised, we will talk about the states as well. Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu had a higher rice consumption than the all India average. Okay, urban, rural, and just read it out, not a lot important. Now, it was lower than the national average. So you can see that there has been a trend of declining consumption. Now, this is for wheat. National average monthly, that was basically this one, right? Here it was for rice, remember that. Okay, and then for wheat we see that consumption was higher in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Delhi and Maharashtra, lower in Odisha, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. Basically Odisha and West Bengal are more inclined towards rice. In Gujarat and Jharkhand, it was lower than the national average in rural areas and higher in urban areas. Do read, that might not be very important from the perspective of prelims, but just for general knowledge, do read about the 10 states where they have been revised. I have already given you the names. So revised downward for 10 states. Let us see: Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. 55.14 crore of the 81.35 crore beneficiaries are under the NFSA. So these particular states will be impacted, of course. And Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh are the states which are actually asking and demanding for the revision of allocation. Earlier, UP was receiving 3 kg of wheat and 2 kg of rice per person under NFSA. Now, it will change to 2 kg of wheat and 3 kg of rice. Gujarat was getting 3.5 kg wheat and 1.5 kg rice per person. It will change to 2 kg of wheat and 3 kg of rice. So there is an impact on the consumption practices of the people of UP and Gujarat with respect to those who are covered under NFSA. Now NFSA has been of course registered certain challenges which might be echoing today. It already knew that something kind of this could happen. So in any case, it said, in any case, any state or union territory's allocation under NFSA is lower than their current allocation, then it will be protected up to the level of average offtake under erstwhile normal target public distribution system during 2010 and 11 to 2012 and 13, and the additional quantity of food grains that will be provided is called the tied over allocation. So it will be nullified, and a cut has been announced in the tied over allocation for wheat for Uttarakhand, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So remember the comparative dates 2011-12 to 2012 and 13. Okay, moving on, if we talk about the question for today, it is with respect to NFSA. Just have a look at it. Consider the following statements with respect to National Food Security Act of 2013. In case of non-supply of entitled food grains or meals, there is a provision for food security allowance to entitled beneficiaries for the purpose of issuing of ration cards. Eldest woman of the household of age 29 years or above is to be the head of the household. We have to select the correct answer. Please answer it correctly. I will take the names of those who have answered it correctly, and I will also take the names of those who have answered my previous question correctly in the following segment after this. Okay. Thank you so much for watching.